Morning, moms of Master Books. As always, we hope you're having a fantastic day. I am joined today by my publicist and my dear daughter, Miss Brittany.
Hi.
She has returned from a week in Nashville, so she has jet lag. So pardon that, but I need some help today because we have a ton of questions, and I want to answer questions because I know a lot of you are at crunch time. You're getting ready to start schooling, and there's just a lot of questions coming in. I also wanted to say that we have I have a bootleg copies of the math lessons level K, and today at 2 o'clock I'm going to kind of do a walkthrough of some of the lessons and just show everybody what it looks like. So if you're interested in math level K, be sure to join me at 2 o'clock this afternoon, Central Standard Time. Okay, so let's get started with the questions. Brittany's going to shoot them at me and I'll answer them as quick as I can. And if there's additional information you need to be sure to post it in the comments. Be sure also to let us know that you're here watching as well. We love seeing everybody who participates. Okay, shoot.
There we go. Okay, Amy Harrison said, has anyone ever completed 2 books of language arts in 1 year?
Absolutely. You can easily set it to the standard. So if a student wants to catch up, you could do levels 2 and 3. You can do that with anything, right? The one thing I would caution you is not to do it just because it's what your student, or it's because what you want for your student. So allow the student to go as fast as they can and catch up. Sometimes you could do three books over a 2-year period instead of 2 in 1 year, and catch them up over a 2-year period. It really depends on the student and their aptitude. Like I wouldn't just burn them out because you want to catch them up because they were behind, especially in 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. That's just too early for that. So as long as a student is capable of doing it, yes.
Okay, this one ties into it a little bit. It says, how much book work do you feel lower elementary students should be doing? I struggle with this as I want to do all the subjects. And that was from Michelle Lee.
It's a stylistic thing. We don't overdo our younger students personally, just because they're not always ready for that much. It takes a lot of stamina to do 5, 6 subjects and be in the book all the time. So I think like math lessons for a living education, 15, 20 minutes up to 45 minutes is kind of a max. And then beyond that, I think there should just be a lot of time for play, development, exploration, discovery, those types of things. I know a lot of people, the answers will vary. Some kids love bookwork. And if you love bookwork, then allow your student to have that as well. You don't need to limit them, but I wouldn't push them just because it's something you need. You know, we have to be careful as parents that we don't push our insecurities and fears onto our students. And sometimes that happens in homeschooling. We're just concerned that our kids are not going to be a success. And so kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, we want them doing all this coursework because it's because of our insecurity, not necessarily because it's what's best for the student.
Awesome. Aniston Corville asked, will America's Story 1 be too much for a 2nd grader who is an advanced reader?
No, but as we've always said, I would say, again, curriculum is a tool, you're the carpenter. If there are levels, if your student's like, I just don't get this, just skip it, or maybe work with them a little more, slow it down, adapt it to the student. So if a student loves to read and loves the information and they're just eating it up, no problem. It wasn't written for a 2nd grader, so you may come across some activities and things like that that aren't appropriate, not appropriate from a PG-13 type level, but not appropriate developmentally. So in those cases, just be willing to overlook or adapt that type of thing.
Awesome. Heidi Taylor said, when is the pre-chemistry book coming out and will the preview be available beforehand?
Yes, preview will be available as soon as I have, if I can snag a copy. It's an intense project, getting all the pictures and that type of thing. I know it's in development. It's in the latter stages. It's definitely on the radar. I'm probably going to say more of a September a date right now. I know they're pushing, all of design is all hands on deck, and they're pushing to get these projects out as quickly as possible. But yeah, we'll definitely have a preview available as well.
Awesome. Heather Anderson said, math lessons for living education, K. What type of things will be covered? I'm trying to figure out if it will be a good fit for my son.
Okay, so at 2 o'clock, I'm going to be doing a live preview of at least first 70 pages or so of Math Level K. Shh, I stole it from one of the editors, and they don't appreciate when I do that. But anyways, that's going to be at 2 o'clock, so you can actually see it. Math Level K is a developmental. It's teaching some application, some critical thinking skills. It's learning to trace. It's learning motor skills. It's developing stamina, basic application of mathematics. It's not an intense skill-based mathematics, but I'll talk more about that. And I will also put a few pages up as a bootleg preview here as well later today.
Awesome. Desiree Adams would ask, what are some good Master Books options for a struggling 7th grader who has a hard time remembering concrete facts? In that case, I wouldn't be afraid to go a little bit outside the box and just find subjects that your student is interested in. Who can remember facts, right? The world is so full of information, and I have access to pretty much everything I need right here. So, but do I know how to access it? Do I know how to utilize that information? So for a 7th grader, communication skills, definitely with like the math. If Principles of Mathematics is too difficult, I wouldn't be afraid to go back and do a little bit more of the hands-on application math of Math Lessons for a Living Education. Find science that is interesting. If they're interested in rocks, then do the minerals and geology and earth science and those types of things. If they're interested in the weather, do astronomy and weather and types of things like that. Really focus to the interest and just getting their brain excited about learning new things. I have a hard time with recall. I read 4 to 5 new books a month. I probably couldn't tell you what those books are. I pull out principles and applications and I make notes and stuff like that. But the details, I just don't have that type of mind. And some students follow that as well. They're good at gaining information and using and applying certain hands-on information. The more they can apply it, the better, is what I would say for that type of student. Awesome. So Antonia Craig, and I hope I said your name right. Forgive me if I did not. She said, what are we supposed to do with all the extra time on our hands now that we've switched to Master Books?
So learning is so much more than a classroom. I love that. And I know it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but book learning is a part of life learning. The rest of life learning happens all throughout. And I'm big that our kids need to be able to play and be creative. They need to do things outside of that. So I would say with extra time, it's enjoy being a family. And can I say, in the seasons of life that we're in, enjoy these moments. You don't think it's going to pass, but it does. And they move on. Snots that they are, they don't stick around forever. So yeah, enjoy this time with your kids because God has given you some grace and giving you some extra time to spend with them. Even though you don't think that you don't imagine it. It does happen. They go fast, don't they? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. She had asked a question a little later on. She said, on a more serious note, how do we not lose ourselves in homeschooling?
Yeah, well, homeschooling is like religion, right? Religion is what we do when we don't have a relationship with Jesus. Homeschooling is what we do when we don't know what we're doing in training and discipling our children, if I could say that. So when we're training and discipling our children, homeschooling is part of every day. It's part of life. It's just the academic side of it. So to me, I think, not comparing ourselves to others, knowing what the end goal is, what is the mission statement, who are we as people and where are we going, and then just doing it. I think you can get so lost in other people's expectations, the comparison game, what curriculum is best, the what ifs that we talked about last Thursday. And I think we take ourselves a little bit too seriously. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Sarah Witt asked, is cursive taught, and if so, in what level of Master Books Language Arts?
Cursive is not taught. It is a course series that is down the road for Master Books. It's on the sheet, but it's not something until we finish language arts. Then cursive will be taught as a separate program. Some people do, like third, fourth grade, they start having them do cursive with the copy work that's there, but it's not taught as part of the course.
Awesome. Christina Biasca, again, I hope I got your name right. She asked, can the history programs be independently worked, or is it better to use them as a family style history? So for example, America's Story, the World Story.
They were designed for individual, independent. So some families use them family style for multiple ages, but they were really designed for the student to be done independently, done with a little bit of supervision and narration and stuff like that from the parents. So yeah, you can do them independently, or you can do it as a classroom style. It really is what works best for your family.
Okay, awesome. Crystal Smith asked, is the solutions manual for elementary algebra set up like Principles of Mathematics 1 and 2? Are the answers explained, or is it more of an answer key?
Yeah, it's more of an answer key. And then the solutions manual it's not, it gives you kind of each a little bits of the step on the harder problems, but it's not, it doesn't actually go through and do in-depth explanation in the solutions.
Awesome. Betsy Thomas asked if we could give a little bit of more information on what will be included in God's design for life, heaven and earth, that particular set.
It'll be like God's design life is to the life course for the upper elementary. It'll cover kind of the basics of what's being taught in God's design for science, heaven and earth for the upper. We don't have a copy of that manuscript yet, and so I can't tell you specifically what things are being taught in the scope and sequence, but I know it'll follow suit with the heaven and earth for God's design for the elementary ages.
Okay. Jackie Four, she's comparing Jensens and writing strands right now, wondering which one she should choose. So maybe could you just touch on maybe what makes each of them distinct and different from each other?
Yeah, so I liken it this way. We typically have multiple personalities, right? So you have a business person versus a hippie in a VW bus. Jensens to me is the business person. It is formulaic, it has formats, it teaches very systematically. So for a student that is very cut and dry, tell me what I need to do and I will do it, I think Jensens is appropriate. For a student who's a little bit more creative outside the box, I think writing strands is a great solution for that. Jensens is, this is what we're working on. Writing strands is, let's be a little bit more creative in our thinking and our communication skills. Writing strands is, the author considered it grammar on the go. So as you're working through the program, it's teaching you some of the basics, like, okay, what would be a good adverb to put in here to give life to the verb? Stuff like that. So it's not a comprehensive grammar course. It's more of a writing communication course, but it teaches grammar kind of as it's needed. So it's really a preference. They're not. One is very thorough. One gives you kind of, here's what you need to be a good writer and move forward. I like writing strands in my style, but I know I've also met a lot of families who really appreciate Jensens and the structure that it gives for grammar.
Awesome. Stephanie Bandy said, how do you deal with a homeschool comparison or judgment from other homeschool families?
Well, peer pressure in homeschooling, I think, is one of the biggest things that people face. I call them alpha moms. A mom who has a lot of experience, she does help a lot of people in the community, but sometimes those personalities can also be kind of overbearing, right? Or we have, we use a certain type of curriculum, and because you don't do it our way, then we're judgmental of that. I've always felt that at the end of the day, I'm the one who stands accountable for my family. On the day of judgment, I will give account for the way I stewarded my family, as will Kristen. And so because of that, I can take people's input. Thank you very much for your input. But I'm not required to follow it if I feel that it's not appropriate for my family. The Holy Spirit trumps all outside opinions, and if he's leading me in another way, then then I have to follow the leading of the Holy Spirit, because at the end of the day, I'm going to stand accountable for what I stewarded, right? So from that standpoint, when there is peer pressure, or there are people who are judgmental of the way we're doing things, sometimes it's good to take note. Is this criticism based in something? Like, am I missing something? Is there something I shouldn't be doing? Once I've determined, no, that's not the case, there's nothing here that I can gain wisdom from, then it's a matter of, it's really none of your business.
Awesome. Stacy Davey asked, would Survey of Science, History, and Concepts be a good course to do in 9th grade to get basic concepts before they take biology, chemistry, or physics? Also, is there a certain level of math required for this course?
There's not math required for that course that I'm aware of. Yeah, that would be a great one, especially if a student is struggling and not ready for the biology or chemistry. Another one would be the life science would be a course that they could do, which you took that course in high school and really enjoyed.
It's one of my favorites.
So you could do that one as well. But Survey of History and Concepts, I think that'd be a great answer for that situation.
Rhea McMahon asked, I purchased Stobaugh American Literature for my struggling learner, but the readings look too difficult for her comprehension issues. Would writing strands with my choice of books be good enough for a high school credit?
Yes.
Awesome.
You're teaching to the student. It's a year worth of instruction. So as long as you're reading material and writing papers, the equivalent of 180 days of instruction, an hour a day, which can be 45 minutes actually on 180 days. It's 1 year of instruction in composition. Think about when you were in school or when you were in college and you're sitting in the classroom and they're just chatting about different authors and things like that, and then you're writing a paper and doing an assignment. You turn it in and then we correct the paper. I mean, that's what you essentially are just copying. You're just using a curriculum to guide you. So writing strands is a great solution for teaching creative communication and writing to a student.
Awesome. Ashley Blankenship asked, she said, I know Master Books, Living Education, Math, and Science will be perfect for my 7-year-old daughter, and we'll be ordering more Master Books electives too, but I'm wondering if they'll work for my 7-year-old dyslexic son. He'll be using a dyslexia-specific program for language, as well as is oddly very good at math. I don't mind reading him the material, by the way.
Yeah, so I'm not an expert in autism, or it was autism and dyslexia? Dyslexia, I'm sorry. So in dyslexia, I'm assuming it's a spectrum, and it's really, you almost have to test a little bit and see what the student is capable of. I know we've had a lot of great reports from parents who have students with dyslexia using the curriculum because it's not overwhelming. So it's not that drill and kill method, and it's more application based, which appeals more to the student that was struggling in that way. So from that standpoint, yeah, I think a lot of our courses are designed in a way that for that student would also work. But I hate to make a blanket statement, yes, because I know that there's different diagnosis, different degrees, all of that. So it's kind of that growth hacking, a little bit of trial and error. If it works, keep pushing it further. If not, abandon it quickly and try something that does.
April Seacrest asked, she said, I'd love to do a Bible curriculum or devotional from Master Books for a middle school girl. We love the end times, the topic of heaven, and higher level thinking questions about our relationship with Jesus. Anything like this available? Bonus points for a discussion-based curriculum or devotional.
Well, like we have the elementary apologetics, which is a course that would fit for that level. You could definitely, we have some standalone books like Answers for Teenagers that you could do kind of in a morning basket style where you just answer, one question and discussion a day. Those would be two great ones that I would recommend. The 10-minute Bible journey would be one that you could use. It's 10 minutes a day or 10 minutes a week of we're going to read this story, discuss it, what was happening. So that would definitely be something that you could do as well. I would look at the morning baskets, especially because we have some great morning baskets. Even the book Titanic Warning, I think it's just brilliant because it looks at the captains of the 3 ships involved in the Titanic disaster and compares them to what we're seeing in the church. and just reading a chapter of that book a day and then having a discussion as a family, like how does our church work? Are we the Titanic? Are we one of the captains that said, oh, we could never help? Or, how are we functioning in culture? So I think the morning baskets would be a great solution as well.
Awesome. Mandy Camaro, hope I got that right. She said, I'd love more details on the art lessons. Anything you can give?
Yeah, art lessons, I don't have a bootleg preview yet. They're holding that one pretty tight to the vest. I know it's in process, and so as soon as I have something on that, I will definitely share it. And it's really, from what I've seen in the early stages, it was an overview to art and kind of get acquainted with some of the different methods and design and of components of art and that type of thing. It's something I know Kristen has said definitely she plans on using it with our kids, especially the ones that aren't as artistic, to just kind of help. It's a gentler approach to art versus some of the courses that are written by, from a very intense standpoint.
Okay, awesome. I think one more big one, and then I think that's probably it. Roxy Atkins asked, my 6th grade daughter is thinking of doing science starters, chemistry and physics because she loves doing experiments. Is there any kits available with all the items you need for experiments? I noticed on the elementary anatomy intro, it said that you could go to another website and order a kit for the anatomy set. Also, we just did a level 5 of teaching textbooks last year, but she tested on a level 4 for the living education math. So we will be doing level 4 for 6th grade. Is that common coming from another math to be 2 levels below?
Okay, so the first question, are there kits available for science starters? I believe CBD, Christian Book, does have kits that were developed for that level. We didn't carry it because of the cost was pretty high for things like styrofoam cups and stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure CBD might have it. As far as the math, it really depends. You did teaching textbooks, and I know that it's pretty easy to game the system if you want to without really learning.
I wasn't very good at math.
So from that standpoint, we know that a student can actually do the math and you have a sense that they're actually learning and gaining skills, and they're not. If that's the case, yeah, it would be definitely, I would call them learning gaps, not a hard, if they're in 5th grade and they may miss some concepts, it may not be a hard, hey, you're a 3rd grader type thing. Right. It's more of there were some skills that were taught back here that are necessary to do the higher level math. So I would approach it from the standpoint of these are just some learning gaps. We're not doing 3rd grade math. We're covering some learning gaps so that we're successful as we continue to go through math. So yeah, that can be pretty common. And I would also say in that case, if the student is doing, if they did 5th grade teaching textbooks and now they're like 3rd grade or it was a 6th grade to 4th grade. In that case, I would absolutely expect more of them. A lot of the material should be review, so they should be able to double up or do, I would set the clock on that and say it's not just one lesson a day. We're gonna accelerate and do, a half an hour worth of math or something like that, and have them kind of work to catch it up a little bit if they're capable.
Awesome. I found a couple more.
Okay.
April Garcia asked, she said, I'm really looking forward to language lessons for living education level 1. Should I wait for it, or is it likely not going to be available anytime soon? Also, I would like more info on the differences between language lessons and writing strands.
Okay, so language lessons level 1, a lot of the content is the same in basic language skills. I think it's using the same books. I know we're working that out right now. I would, if you're ready, if your student is ready to go into level 1, I would be comfortable suggesting that you do that rather than hold them back. Level 1, we've accelerated it as long as Kristen is able to do it with treatments and stuff. So we're looking at that coming out in the fall. So anybody who started phonics here in the beginning of the year will have it available to them for the 2nd semester. But I wouldn't necessarily hold the student back, it'll be a little prettier maybe with the living language lessons for living education, the design, but I wouldn't hold your student back on that. The difference between writing strands and language lessons is there's a spider on the wall or a fly. There's a spider.
It's a spider.
We're sorry, we got distracted by the spider on the wall. He's not that big.
No, but it's a spider.
It is a spider, yeah. In these parts, we're from New York originally, and we moved down here, and we have had brown recluses. And brown recluses, we thank the Lord, we have not had anybody suffer a bite by a brown recluse, except Aubrey, the receptionist. She has, but she's not in our home. But yeah, so we have these all the time that get in these little sticky traps, and we've seen the damage that it does when somebody gets bit by one.
We have a major spider phobia.
Major, yeah. We have those and black widows. So when you walk out and you see a black widow on your closet wall, you just it leaves an impression,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a little one.
I'm sorry. Okay, so what was the question?
Difference between language lessons and
That's right.
strands.
Okay, language lessons, writing strands. Writing strands is a creative communication course, and language lessons is a more applied grammar course. So for a foundation in grammar, I would recommend language lessons for a living education. If your student has a strong foundation in grammar, then I would recommend looking at writing strands. The way it's going to be designed is you would go through grades 1 through 6 of language lessons for a living education. Then you would test your student for writing strands, see where they would place. We would hope they would place in about the intermediate 1 level for 7th grade. And that would be the recommended progression through our system.
Awesome. Heather Schlid said, I have a 9th grader this fall who's done multiple grammar curriculums since 4th grade, yet still struggles with it. Do you find that Jensens works with those struggling? When I look at the samples, I'm a bit hesitant as it seems like a program for one who is more solid in it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Jensens is a it's a very serious grammar and writing program in that it was designed for kind of a very rigorous approach. In that case, I would go more towards writing strands. And the reason I would do that is writing strands teaches more of a communication skills and creative communication. So it's not going to focus as heavy on nouns and verbs, but it is going to focus on choosing your words wisely and how to write great communication without a lot of the heavy lifting, if you will, of a course like Jensens.
Awesome. Shannon Gross said, twins going into 2nd grade, they have both always tested above grade level. Should I just buy the 2nd grade bundle and let them move through it quicker so there are no holes in learning, or should I give them the placement test and place them where they are?
I would do the placement test. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't make them go back and do something if they didn't need to, but if nothing else, you have some peace of mind in it. And, it's stylistic. Some parents let's build their confidence. Let's just get them a book that they can work through really quickly, and it'll build their confidence and give them those skills. Mm-hmm. For other situations, that may actually set them back. So your student best. I don't think it hurts to kind of do the placement test and just feel it out, right? We're big in testing and growth hacking, which means there is no easy answer for things, especially when you deal with kids. I have 9 kids. Every one of these kids is so unique and so different, and the way we approach life has to be so unique and different with them. So what worked well for one student doesn't necessarily work well for the other. And even harder, I can only imagine the head game of having twins and thinking not lumping them together, right? We have kids that are close in age, and it's hard not to lump them together. So to have twins, and I know that they could be completely different personalities. I think a little bit of that, where are you and let's do an individualized learning solution. So our basic sets are designed as a very get started, if I don't have a clue what I'm doing type approach, I'm just going to get the basics set, and that's a great starting point. We could always retreat or add or do those things. If you have the opportunity to do a placement test, I would recommend it.
I've got one last one. Andrea Davis asks, all my kids struggle with writing and putting thoughts on paper. There are 3 high school students. Which would be the best fit? I have a senior that's begging me for writing curriculum, and then a 14-year-old that can't take notes and is a terrible speller.
I recommend Writing Strands. I think there's in the Writing Strands landing page, there's kind of a placement guide that you could use. You don't necessarily have to focus on the literature component in that. You could just do the writing component and spread it out a little bit longer. And I think, outside of that, one of the things I did with one of my students that was struggling is I would just take a book and I would say, read this chapter. That's all I want. Read the chapter. And then the next day I would say, write me a paragraph about what the chapter was about. I didn't make him do a introduction sentence and 3 supporting sentences and a conclusion, anything like that. It was just write what that's about. Now, Kristen was working with him with other things and stuff like that, but he was struggling in this one area, and it was something that in that season that worked. And so he would just read one chapter, write me a paragraph of what it was about. Then I would do some minor corrections. I wouldn't assault him and say, man, you're stupid because you can't even write a paragraph that made sense. I would just say, try to develop this a little bit more, or tomorrow when we write about the next chapter, can you adapt it? Be careful here. When you tell me this, here's punctuation or whatever. And start writing that way, as opposed to, here's a curriculum and we're going to go through everything. And it was just difficult. So we chose a book that he liked. He was enjoying reading, and he read a chapter of it, and it was an easier book, so the chapters weren't hard. And then he just wrote me kind of a report back of what that was. And he developed just some basic skills that helped him be able to communicate his ideas. And I think of any of the kids, he probably would struggle the most to communicate his ideas anyways. And so that kind of helped him be able to put words to his feelings about what he was reading, and started there. And then from there, you can move into a more formalized curriculum. But again, we're the carpenters. All of these textbooks are tools that help us. And when a tool isn't right for the job, then you should stop using it. When I need to make sure that my picture is square, that circular saw I suppose I could make a circular saw make my picture square, but it may not be the best tool for the job, right? And so that's what we encourage you is, are you using the best tools for each student and individual student? Okay.
Awesome.
That's it?
Yep.
Awesome.
That's it.
Well, good. Well, I hope that this was informational. We probably will do a couple more of these before the end of August, because I know there's just a lot of questions that people have, and there's a lot of apprehension. When we've been in selling curriculum for a lot of years as a family, and my favorite comment is when people will say, well, what's the best curriculum to use? My favorite comment is the third one. I hope I'm always the third one, but you tend to buy one curriculum because somebody was excited about it. You try it, oh, train wreck. Then we swing hard the other way, right? So then it's like, oh, I'm going to do this one. And then it seems like right about in the middle is where we should be, and we settle. So give yourself room for that. Even in your budget, don't max your budget right away. Be sure to say, I want to have just a little bit of that rebound room, that when something doesn't work, I can come back to find a solution that does work. So don't over stress about making a bad curriculum decision. I was a principal of a school, and I remember as we were selecting curriculums, it was tough because we would get a curriculum, and then we would, have to have to live with it as a school, and so it was frustrating. The beauties of homeschooling is we don't have to do that. If it isn't working, we can just set it on a shelf or sell it or use it with the next kid. But then we can find a better solution. And sometimes the best solution is just go way outside the box and be creative, right? To be the best and the most creative. So you had curriculums that you loved and that you hated. But you almost, as you got into high school, you got to actually have a say in the curriculum.
Right.
So once you had weighed in on it, then you almost had to live with it more.
Right.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, good. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining me, helping answer the questions. Yeah. Again, 2:00, we're going to be doing math lessons for living education, level K. I'll be doing a walkthrough and a preview. Next Tuesday, Brittany will be interviewing and talking with Rebecca Spooner about the More Than Words, right? That's next Tuesday. And so looking forward to that. That course is a fantastic course as well. So, well, thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic day. Hopefully I see some of you at 2:00 p.m. Central Standard Time, CST, to discuss the math lessons for living education level K. Talk to you later.
Bye.